We are back at the bench doing a follow-up on the introduction of your controller and your controller wiring. I hope you watched that video because it's got some informative, some good information on what you need to know about the wiring of the controller. Now, I have to expand on this here just a little bit. This is going to fall into the category of do what I do. Or I'm sorry, do what I say, don't do what I do. In this particular cooler, I'm actually going to attempt to salvage the LED lights that the manufacturer put in here, which means I'm going to try and keep these two screw mounts intact. Now, between you and me, I'm going to recommend that you don't do that. You can follow my lead here if you wish to try and do it, but remember, I don't supply the wiring for that. And I don't supply the switch. I've installed this switch there a little while ago to go ahead and turn that light on and off. So you guys that are handy, you can figure out a way to get a switch in here and probably get it turned on and off. And you could ask me questions. I can go into that a little later. I don't want to spend a lot of time with it. Normally what I would do here is I would hog this entire area out. I would take out this mount, and I take out this area to make my wiring easier to accomplish, because from my perspective that's really all that's necessary. That's what's necessary to make the cooler run, and that's really what's important to me. Making a stupid little light work is not really all that important to me, but you know, at least from the consumer side. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this guy off. There's a Phillips screw buried down in here, and so just go ahead and get that guy and pull this out and get it out of the way. Now, in the event that you do wish to follow along with me, I'm going to make some additional pathways for my wiring without attempting to destroy this mount. Now, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, all this plastic material needs to go, okay? That will make your job considerably easier. If what you're going to do is you're going to struggle along with me, then you're going to have to bear with me here while I tinker with ideas on how to get those additional wires through here. So what I've done here is this. I've taken my drill, okay, and I've added this extension and this step drill to it. And the whole idea here is to make myself a couple of different pathways to try and get some of this additional wiring through, to try and ease up the bind some. Now, what I can do, I'm just going to stick with that original plan. Come down in here and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so I got a couple of holes. I don't know whether they're going to be big enough to do me any good or not, but I'm going to come through the face of this guy like so. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. Alright, so I've made a couple of additional wire pathways into this, and hopefully they're going to be big enough. I get stubborn, and I want this darn switch, okay? Don't ask me why, but I want it. So, again, what I did is I went ahead and I drilled these holes, and I think I'm going to try and use some of this area. I have a number of different tools of destruction, which you might guess. One of which is these angular metal shears for trimming ducts, etc. You can use all kinds of tools for this. I got a pair of hoof nippers here on the bench. You can get a set of diagonals. This is pretty soft plastic, so you can just kind of cut into it with relative ease. You probably can do this with a pair of scissors, but I'm going to go ahead and use these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and slice down that web like that, okay? And then I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to snip that piece out. Okay, actually a straight set of nippers would actually work far better than this, but I really don't want to start this video one more time. Okay, so there, I've managed to trim through that one and give us a little bit more room, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Come through here, I'm going to clip that guy off. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to nip this guy off too. Okay. So this does not need to be beautiful. All this stuff's going to be covered up and it's going to be outside of your way. But now what I've done is I've created an additional path, through here for my wiring. Okay, and if you're going to try and save this light, that's what I suggest. You're going to have to leave these posts intact if your goal was to try and save this light, because this light screws back up to these posts right here. Now, what I could find maybe is that these LEDs interfere with the reading of my sensor. If that's the case, boom, the whole thing goes into the trash. But I haven't discovered that yet, or I don't think that's going to be a problem. That's the reason why I'm going to go ahead and give this LED thing a shot. Okay? So we went ahead and did that step. If you're not worried about the LED, just take all this stuff off, because it's just going to make your life that much easier. Won't put a strain on your wires and won't make your wires apt to come out of the controller. Now, if I didn't mention it before you install this guy, what I'd like to do is I'd like you to come through here, one terminal at a time, hold the actual terminal block connector, and make sure that the open wires, the wires that are in there, are snug. Okay. Now, in order to get this assembly in, you can do a couple of things. You can put it in, you can put it together, and then you can put these connectors back in. But again, my goal is I would prefer that you guys don't fool with the connectors at all. This particular orange connector, as I said in the other video, you can kind of see how wobbly that is, all right? So I don't want this board to be broken as a result of trying to wire the thing up. I've taken the 6-wire connector off to fit this in, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. You just take these wires and everything and just feed it all in there. I'm sorry, I would normally do this all in my lap. So doing it on a bench is kind of uncomfortable, so you can see it. Okay, now there is an upside and a downside, and the upside's got the label. I'm just going to feed all this stuff through here. We're going to push this connector in. Push this connector through first. We didn't get this one in, so we got to do that. Let's get that guy in there. And it's kind of a hassle. But what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to keep you from pulling the connectors in and out. Okay, so that's the gist of it. Okay, hopefully most of that went on the video. If not, run with it. Anyway, okay, so now I've got a little bit of extra room because, to be honest with you, I did try this before a couple of times on a couple of different videos, and I really wasn't satisfied with the result, not having the extra room. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we got to find room for all these wires to head out to the back, the ones that need to head out to the back. And while this all looks like a little bit of madhouse work here, we're just going to do it a little bit at a time and try and find a home for all of these that does not interfere with our life otherwise. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to make room for some of these other connectors that are going to remain inside the housing. Okay, this probably looks as silly on video as it is for me to do. Okay, so what I've done is I've basically got all the wires run out the back. I'm going to pretty much reserve this slot over here. Okay, let's go over here so you can see it. There we go. So I'm going to pretty much reserve this slot over here for the controller wire, okay? Now, controllers and certain sensors, the sensor wiring uses a small amount of voltage and a small amount of amperage, and so they can be interfered some with line voltage connections, and this black and white is a line voltage. So I'm going to keep the line voltage through this center hole here and away from my controller wire. The 12 volt wiring, I don't necessarily mind going with it, so I pulled it over from that side, and we're going to go ahead and have that wiring go with it. So, you know, does it make sense for some of these things to go into different locations? Well, maybe. You know, should I run this guy over here like so? I don't know. I'm going to have to push the controller in a little bit more to figure that out. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and snap this guy back in place. Remember, these screws always go to the outside of the controller. Now that I've got everything pretty much firmly attached, I want to make sure that this guy is going to embed in here. This guy, I think I'm just going to get out of the way altogether for now. Okay. Sensor wires, kind of sensitive. They're really small wires, so there we go. See, it would be much better if this post was out of the way. See how it really crowds the wires in there? I mean, I don't really like that, but I think I'm going to live with it. Like I said, it kind of makes more sense to me to yank that out, to just get rid of it, but I'm stubborn and I'm really determined to make it work. Now, these wires are largely going to get in the way of the light anyway, but that's okay. So you need to ask yourself, are there other ways that I can place this? Are there better ways to put the wires, etc.? Okay. All right. Well, I'm happy with the way that's laying out. So now what you got to do is you got to fish these little guys in here, and you need to get the mounts in. Now these things are kind of a pain in the rear, and they go the little butterfly forward. Okay. So lift the controller out and try to do this one on the one side if you've decided to put some kind of switch in here first. Like I said, these things are kind of a pill. Not easy to do in confined spaces. Okay, so that guy's on. And this guy's, well, let me show you here real quick. If you need to release these, see where it says push? You need to push in at this little divot. You need to push into this little divot that releases the ratcheting mechanism over there on the side of the controller. But we're not taking them out, we're putting them in. So now I'm going to fit this one up. Okay, so that's it. So now what we do is we zip them down. We tighten them down. So you just push them and compress that little butterfly to hold the controller in place. Okay, so you got that. Whoop. Get back to the center of the video. Controller's now in place. So I'm pretty happy with that. I don't really like the strain on this wire, but you know, the wire will take a set after a while. This is new wire. The wire is fairly cool because it's cool in here. So so that'll be okay. All right. We're going to do a little logical rearranging here some more to try and make this a little bit easier to work with. Those things will hide up in there. That's fine. This guy's going to come down. So we're going to try and do this a couple of different ways here. This area here is where the wires come out, and they go through a couple of slots that have already been put into the light. Okay? So what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to run the high voltage, the line voltage, and the signal wires through one side, and then we'll go ahead and we'll run the low voltage connection and the sensor through the other side, like so. Okay? Screws over there. Go ahead and drop this guy back into place. Okay, make sure you don't pinch any of the wires. Okay, so there we go. I keep saying okay. So that's what it looks like from the back. So we've got the controller wire and the line voltage wire and the low voltage wire paired up next to the sensor wire. All right, that looks marvelous. So we're going to go ahead and drop that screw down in there. Make sure that he gets in the hole. Let's just tie wrap these guys together. Okay. So, bingo. And I don't think that I want to wrap the positive and negative wires together with the sensor wire, because I'm always a little sensitive about sensor interference. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull this guy straight like so, get another zip tie, and we'll put these guys together. There we go. And we can clip this off, and we can come back and we can zip tie more when we're neatening up the rest of the assembly. Okay. Now, normally your controller, unless somehow I lost it, will have a thin sheet of plastic that goes over and keeps this guy covered until you're ready to use it. That's probably a good idea to leave that on. While like a lot of people, you want to tear that off immediately, because as you can see, I've kind of pressed my controller up here against the table a couple of times. Of course, you could work on something softer than my piece of wood. You could put a towel or something down. But just try to be mindful of some of the other things that you're doing alongside of controlling this, controlling your assembly. Okay. So you can kind of see the way this stuff has laid in here. I know this is about a 15-minute video, 17-minute video, so it probably has taken me a lot longer trying to explain it and fiddle with it, but you're going to fiddle with yours too, okay? It's not just going to lay right in there. Well, these are 18-gauge wires, but they're nicely insulated wires, so they don't have a lot of flex if I use something like a 20-gauge or thinner gauge wire. But that's it. That's how the assembly looks. You're pretty much done with this, and you're ready to take this assembly and mount it back into the to the top of the cooler.